Hello class. In this video, we're going to be focusing on subtracting decimals using whole numbers and tenths. But before we start the lesson, I want you to pause the video, write your full heading including your first and last name, the date, mathematics, and your period number, along with the title, Subtracting Decimals with Whole Numbers and Tenths. Pause the video now and write this in your notebook. Now that we have that in our notebook, we can start our lesson. So subtracting decimals is the same thing as subtracting as whole numbers, except you have decimals included with your whole numbers. So you always have to line them up by place value. Make sure the digits are underneath each other by place value. So let's use an example. Here we have 93 minus 3 6/10. So as we do with any subtraction, we write the first number down. So here we have 93. Now I look at 93 and I realize that that's a whole number. And usually when people line it up, they line it up by the decimal. But where is that decimal here in the whole number? Well, it's after the ones. And the 3 is in the ones. So we know that we have a decimal. So right after the 3. So I'm going to write in my decimal. Okay? Because I added that, I put it in a different color. Now I can line up the 3 and 6/10. So I'm going to minus. The 3 is in the 1, so I have to put it underneath the 3. My decimal goes under decimal, and then I write a 6. Now, all I do is I input a 0 wherever there's a blank that's not matched up with a number. So like the 9 has no number underneath, so I'm going to put a 0 underneath it. The 6 doesn't have a number on top of it, so I'm going to put a 0 on top of it. Now that I have that, I can now subtract the normal way I would normally. 0 minus 6 I can't do, so I have to borrow. So this 3 in the ones becomes a 2 because I'm going to take the 1 out and make it 10 tenths. So this 0 becomes a 10. Now I could do 10 minus 6, and that gives me 4. I then bring down my decimal, and then I do 2 minus 3. I can't do 2 minus 3 because 2 ones and 3 ones, I can't subtract it that way, so I have to borrow. So the 9 now becomes an 8, right? So I'm taking 1 10 out and I'm making it 10 ones. So 10 ones plus 2 ones is 12 ones, so this 2 becomes a 12. 12 minus 3 gives me 9. 8 minus 0 gives me 8. And that is my final answer, 89 4/10. I want you to pause this video now and write all this in your notebooks. Now that we have this in our notebooks, let's look at another example. Here we have 87 minus 4 7/10. So I'm going to write the 84. Notice that I am giving it a little bit of a distance so that I can line up properly. And I then see I need to add a decimal because this has a decimal. So I find my decimal. My decimal is always after the ones column. So in a whole number, it's after the ones. And then I subtract the other. Now this 4 is in the ones. So I'm going to put the 4 underneath the 4. And then the 7. See how I'm lining them up by place value? Then I just add a 0 wherever I don't see a number lining up above or below a number. So the 8 doesn't have a number below it, so I'm going to add a 0. The 7 doesn't have a number above it, so I'm going to add a 0. And now I can subtract. 0 minus 7 I cannot do, so I need to borrow. This 4 becomes a 3. And the 0 now becomes a 10. 10 minus 7 is 3. I bring down my decimal. 3 minus 4 I can't do, so I'm going to borrow. The 8 becomes a 7. The 3 now becomes a 13 because I'm adding 110 is actually 10 1. So I'm adding 10 to the 3, and that's how I got 13. 13 minus 4 is 9. 7 minus 0 is 7. So my final answer here is 79 3/10. I want you to pause this video and write this in your notebooks. Now there's one other way to be subtracting the whole numbers and the tenths. And this is by having the whole number being subtracted from a tenth number. So The process is the same exact thing. I would write the first number. In this case, it's 48 and 3/10. Notice that I'm leaving spaces between my numbers so I can easily organize my numbers. Now I'm going to subtract. Now 12 is my whole number. So the 2 is in the ones column. Where's the ones here? The 8. So I'm going to write the 2 there. The 1 is in the tens column. So I'm going to write that underneath there. Again, I add my decimal after the whole number, so I have my decimals lined up. And then I add a 0 wherever I don't have a number above or below another. In this case, it's only where the 3 is. There's no number below the 3, so I'm going to add a 0. And then I just subtract. 3 minus 0 is 3. I bring down my decimal. 8 minus 2 is 6. 4 minus 1 is 3. So my final answer here is 36 and 3/10. I want you to pause this video and write this in your notebooks. Now that we've done some on our own, I want you to try some. Here is two numbers, 78 minus 4 and 2/10, and 57 and 1/10 minus 23. Remember, you can go back to any of the 3 questions that we've gone through, but make sure you write the question down and show all of your work with your final answer. Right? Review the video as many times as you need to.